Welcome to Your Need to Know. I'm your host, Catherine Reed, and joining me today is Mary Braxton. She is a board member of the Virginia Association for the Education of Young Children. Welcome to the show, Mary. You are a veteran here. We have talked about child care and childhood education many times.
Many times. Thank you for having me again.
Well, we never run out of things to say. This conversation will never be over because there is so much that we need to address. And the Virginia Association for the Education of Young Children is actually putting on a conference on March 15th. I will be there.
Exactly, in Roanoke, Virginia this year.
That's right. And so I wanted to bring you on to talk a little bit about why this association exists and why people should understand why this is an ongoing conversation we need to have here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Maybe give us a little bit of background on the organization.
The organization actually started as, its roots are in Virginia Council of Social Work, and that began in 1955.
Yeah, this is the 67th
67th annual conference is in Roanoke this year in a couple weeks. So in 1956, 60 individuals attended a child care preschool institute in Roanoke, Virginia, and a year later, more than 200 advocates got together and they came up with a constitution and a name, and that name is the Virginia Association for the Education of Young Children. It's an organization that it's affiliated, it's a state organization of a national organization, the National Association for the Education of Young Children. Since its development so many years ago, we now have actually two affiliates in the state of Virginia. We have a Northern Virginia VAAEYC, Education of Young Children, and then we have the Virginia Association for the Education of Young Children. And that has just recently taken place because the national organization, which is located in Washington, D.C., restructured itself.
So you have actually chapters all over, because I've looked at the website, and you actually have chapters all over. Central Virginia,
Yes.
South Side, Virginia Beach, they're everywhere.
There's 8 chapters. So when you come on, if you decide to join the Virginia Association for the Education of Young Children, you become a member of one of those 8 chapters also. And there's a Prince William chapter, there's Central chapter, New River Valley, Greater Lynchburg, Southeastern, Southwestern, Central, Richmond.
And so the people who would be joining as members are people obviously involved in the education of young children. Okay, that's kind of obvious. But let's talk a little bit about what people presuppose early childhood education to be.
I will be honest and say, unfortunately,
Yes.
people think when they hear early education, early childhood education, they believe that means teaching. They believe that means a school. It means kindergarten. It means 3rd grade. They don't associate it with those earlier years, which are so critically important. Those, the child care providers, the child care centers, the directors, the preschools, and even the home visiting programs, all of that is part of early childhood education.
Right, but people think it has to be in a school.
People think it has to be in a school.
But what we really need to do is elevate the people who are providing care, no matter what the setting is. And you, for many years, were an in-home child care provider.
Exactly, for over 27 years.
Right, so for 27 years, you were the first person that, taught a little person how to walk, how to feed themselves, potty training. How is this not education? It is definitely education.
It's definitely, that's the foundation. It's in those settings that all of those important pieces come together. We all know that the brain develops during those first 3 years. And there's so much learning that takes place during those first 5 years, and all of the basic social emotional skills that need to be strongly set in a child for the child to be successful in a kindergarten classroom, in a 1st grade classroom. All of those things take place prior to entering a school building. So this organization encompasses birth through age 8. It encompasses all of it.
So early childhood education is not just the kindergarten teacher or even the preschool. It is the people who take care of children, who are with them most of their waking hours during the work week.
Correct. Absolutely.
But we haven't really elevated that. People use the terms babysitting, daycare, childcare interchangeably, and they're not interchangeable.
No, they're not interchangeable.
Your business for 27 years, you were in the business of raising children, raising them,
Raising
teaching them.
other people's children.
Right, and so
Right.
there should be a standard for that. And you and I have, for many
Right.
years, worked on the issue of child care regulation, which is also part and parcel of all of this. There has to be some baseline, some oversight. You know, you have talked many times about needing to know CPR, first aid, fire drills, you know, basic nutrition, SIDS, always putting a baby on their back.
On their back, right.
Right? But here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, we are not very strong on those issues, which is why the two of us keep meeting this way. So, you know, what can we do to help people understand, as this organization does, that early childhood needs to encompass everyone who takes care of children?
Right. This organization, one purpose of the organization is we work with those taking care of the children. We work with those teaching the children. We work as a voice on behalf of the children and of the families. So we are about professional development, but we're also about public policy and advocacy, and we're the voice for these children that they can't speak for themselves. So that's part of what these organizations and what an organization like the Virginia Association for the Education of Young Children does and takes part of.
So the Commonwealth has some reason to be optimistic, a couple of reasons to be optimistic. So first of all, we have a children's cabinet that was put into place by Governor Ralph Northam last year in 2018. Previously, Governor McAuliffe had, by executive order, established the first children's cabinet in 2014. So this children's cabinet, this is the second iteration, actually has a school readiness officer. Now this is a new twist,
Right.
Jenna Conway. So should we be optimistic about the fact that Virginia seems to say we need to have somebody really focused on early childhood education?
I think it's a very exciting time, and it is something we should be very optimistic and excited about. Because again, it's helping to steer away from the fact that education with a child begins in a school setting. They're now really truly looking at all of those other pieces and combining all of those other pieces to understand that the professional growth and development of those taking care of these children needs to be looked at, and there needs to be a stronger voice for these children and the services that are provided to them during those early childhood years.
So the legislative session just ended. There was a unified effort this time around anything related to children and childhood education. Tell me about the groups that work together on this unified agenda.
There's numerous. We have the Virginia Association for the Education of Young Children. We have Voices for Virginia's Children. We have mental health groups. We have
Child
Care Aware of Virginia, which Child Care Aware of Virginia has 5 regional offices also. So pretty much every area is covered and represented. And we work together, and we go to speak together at the budget hearings and public hearings and on legislation, not only during session, but when General Assembly isn't meeting, we're still on these phone calls, and we're meeting face to face, and we're contacting our delegates and our senators. Today, actually, right now in Washington, D.C., is the National Association for the Education of Young Children Advocacy and Public Policy event. That's a 3-day event where they work and they meet with representatives from other states, come and they meet in Washington, D.C. They attend classes. They talk about a unified agenda on a federal level, and then they go and they meet with their representatives.
Well, so this was a mixed bag this year, as it is every year. You know, a lot of things that we'd like to see don't get out of committee or they don't get passed, but a few things got passed this year. But working as a coordinated effort really seems to have made a difference. Do you feel like
we're making progress. I personally and honestly believe I've been involved in this, in these organizations for over 20 years myself. And so we're making slow progress, but we are making progress. And the difference between now and even 10 years ago is more and more people are wanting to hear about it, and more people are becoming more knowledgeable, and there's more focus on the development that takes place prior to those children entering an elementary school.
You know, one of the things that we have talked about many times is the fact that oversight of childcare, especially home-based childcare, but there's all kinds of exemptions for other programs too. We don't have time today to talk about them all. But the fact that, you know, when parents go to search out childcare for an infant or they're returning to work, we both know, because I've had children in home-based childcare, you need somebody who is in the right location, has an opening, and you can afford.
Exactly.
And so no one's asking whether or not they're licensed, regulated. We are fortunate in Fairfax County. We have the Office for Children. It's been around since 1974. Arlington and Alexandria. The problem isn't in those three places.
Right.
But you're in Prince William County.
Right. We have, in Prince William County, you can have up to, and in the majority of Virginia, you can have up to 4 children that are not your own, and you can care for them and have nothing.
Have no licensing at
No
all.
license,
no
no
oversight
first aid,
whatsoever.
CPR, no background checks, no training whatsoever on how to take care of this child, which is somebody else's child. And unfortunately, the view has been, well, if anybody can have a child, if you can give birth, then you can take care of a child. That isn't necessarily the case, and the children there needs to be an insurance of safety.
Absolutely. Basic things.
Basic safety.
Basic things, you know, and there have
Which
been
would include a background check,
a background check.
first aid, CPR.
Yeah, basic nutrition, but the SIDS thing is also very important. You know, back when my children were little, we laid them on their stomachs or their sides, right? Babies.
And now it's right.
And now it's like, no, always on their back.
Always on their back.
And so, you know, there is a base minimum where everybody has to understand what the basics are for a safe, nurturing environment in which children can learn.
We have a third of the state lacks safe, regulated childcare options.
Right.
A third of the state, and part of that problem is barriers against providers becoming licensed who want to become licensed.
Right.
So, you know, we need to really fully address all of the issues.
We definitely do. And one of the things we need to address too is like where early childhood education fits in with childcare. And when we come back from this break, that's exactly what we're going to talk about. I am talking with Mary Braxton. She is a board member for the Virginia Association for the Education of Young Children. And after this break, we're going to dig a little bit deeper into why we should all pay more attention to what's going on here.
Nice going, Spencer! I can't believe we broke Old Man Hennessy's window.
Correction, dude. You broke. I just threw the ball.
This is really bad. What are we gonna do?
We?
Go to the door, ask for the ball back. Are you serious?
It's my ball, Myrtleback.
You're so dead. I'd run away.
Yeah, to Uruguay.
Kiss your life goodbye. Sorry.
Let's go. Yeah, remember me and your well.
Nice one. Some friends you are.
Keep smiling, keep shining.
Hi. Tell him it was an accident, and we can fix the window. Come on. I'll come with you.
Loyalty. Pass it on.
You go first.
A message from the Foundation for a Better Life.
You're not the kind of guy that makes the tears all sigh.
2 for 3.
They never turn their heads and look when you walk by. 'Cause it's the little things.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. Helping.
What a nice young man.
Pass it on.
My goodness.
You are not what you got.
A message from the Foundation for a Better Life.
I better get out of here. Ooh.
Welcome back to Your Need to Know. I'm your host, Catherine Reed, And today I am talking with Mary Braxton. She is on the board of the Virginia Association for the Education of Young Children. She is also the SECA representative to that board, and that is the Southern Early
Childhood Association.
Right, SECA. So you are actually involved in many child care organizations yourself personally, in addition to having been a 27-year provider of child care in your home. So I can't imagine anybody who knows more about this in the Commonwealth of Virginia than you do. So tell us a little bit about, the conference aims to bring people together who are working with children.
The conference is so many people who care for children, and whether it's in their home or a daycare center, or even, I believe, directors. And I'm even going to say some teachers don't necessarily take advantage of these conference opportunities because you may have to go out of your area.
Right.
I find a great benefit in attending conferences out of my area because I see a bigger picture. I get to see a bigger picture of what that specific area may be facing regarding early childhood issues, child care issues, the lack of child care, if that's what's taking place.
You have mentioned that there are child care deserts across Virginia.
Yes, about a third of the state lacks safe child care or regulated child care options, which makes it very difficult for a parent looking for child care who may have to select somebody 2, 3, 4 counties over, or go with not their preference. Their preference would probably be to have their child in a licensed facility, but if that area only has 1 or 2 child care centers and no licensed family child care options, they don't have any other option but to go with unregulated child care.
So you and I actually worked on a bill together this year that we've been working on for several years. It's an HOA bill that would basically protect child care homes within communities that have a homeowners association.
Correct.
And basically the bill says that everything being equal as far as the right to have a business in, let's say, Prince William County or a particular town in Prince William County, that the prohibition has to be specific within the HOA regulations.
Correct.
So in order to shut down or to prevent a licensed in-home child care, an HOA would have to specifically enumerate that in their HOA.
Exactly.
So that's kind of a victory because
that's right.
That's been a problem in the past.
That's been a big problem in the past. And one example I'll give you, there was a provider in Prince William County. She operated for 25 years in her same home as a licensed family child care provider. She even watched some of the HOA board members' children and grandchildren, and there was a change in a process of how she could obtain her license. Because when you're a licensed provider, you have to go through a renewal process. And part of that renewal process now had to do with going to zoning, and zoning had to send out notification. And that was a new process that took place in 2012. And she tried to go through that process to renew her license, and the current HOA president said, no, you can't operate. And she spent thousands of dollars
trying to defend
herself and went through 3 or 4 lawyers. And when you're getting up to $8,000,
right? Think what
you just and the toll emotionally that's taking on you. And this isn't just your way of life. This is a profession, and it needs to be looked at as a profession.
Bingo.
But the other part of that is this becomes your passion. I do what I do because I'm passionate about doing it, because I understand the impact and I believe in the difference it makes. And to have somebody say, no, you can't operate here because basically that's not good enough for our community, which is pretty much what it's saying. You only have so much money that you can spend and so much emotionally and mentally that you can endure to try to remain open. And they did force her to close.
So you and I both testified in front of the Housing Commission this past summer. And, one of the things that I pointed out is we're talking about 2 different groups of working parents, working families. There's the families that work outside the home, and in order to be able to work outside their home, They have to have people who run a home-based daycare, if that's their option.
If that's their option,
If that's
right?
their option. And that's a working family too. So when we say that we need to support working families, that we need to support working parents, people who keep children in their home as their profession, as their business, they're working families
They're working
too.
families
and we're
too,
not
right.
talking about them that way. And we're not treating them as professionals either.
Right.
And this is something I see that maybe we have turned a corner, or we're turning a corner here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, where we're talking in a different way about the people who raise our children.
Right. We have turned a corner. We need to make sure that we continue to move forward in turning that corner. About the people that are taking care of the children, and the importance of that, and also about professional development of early childhood professionals themselves and how important that those development opportunities are. And again, I'm going to go back to you had asked about the conference. To go to a conference and network with 600, 800, 1,000 other people that do what you do is beyond motivational. The first one I went to, I drove to by myself. I knew nobody, and I went just for the day because I was scared to death, not
Right.
knowing anybody. And all I could think of as I drove home, crying, I drove home crying because I wanted to still be a part of that. And it was actually my second conference where I filled out applications to serve on the board, because to be a part of that energy and that motivation and that dedication, and to walk away knowing that you're truly making a difference in the lives of the development of children and setting a foundation for their successful learning, there's nothing better than that.
You know, and I think we need to really look at why people go into education to begin with. It certainly isn't for the money. So when you have classroom teachers, they're not doing it because, they're going to buy a boat
Right.
with their salary. And it's the same for every person who works with young children. There's a component of it that says that this is where I want to invest my time. It's where I want to invest my future.
Right.
You did it for 27 years. Like, some things.
Right.
You know some things. But it's rewarding too, in a way that a lot of other jobs are not rewarding at the end of the day.
Exactly.
Early
Exactly.
childhood education and the people who work with young children, there is a different intangible benefit to that work.
Absolutely, absolutely. And those children, to go into a kindergarten classroom, to go into first grade, to go into second grade, those teachers need those children to have so strong social emotional skills. They need them to know how to take turns. They need to know those children to know basic ways of getting along. And all of those things take place in those early childhood years. Early childhood education starts at birth. It starts day one. It starts with that first place you put that child.
Absolutely. And it's also an economic issue. There's a wonderful quote that I heard somewhere that was like, in order for an economy to work, you need to have a system of childcare that works. I think that was Mary Braxton who said that.
Yeah, I was going to say, I wonder who said
I
that.
heard that. But that is so true. This is an economic issue. People cannot work and fill the jobs that need to be filled if there is not a system of childcare that works right alongside.
Absolutely. And it's an investment. It's an investment in the future. If we invest in the children now, those children are going to be more successful as they go through those later years of school. And by later years, I mean they're going to tend to graduate. They're going to tend to go off to college, or if they don't go off to college, maybe they will go and they'll learn a trade.
Get a
certification or learn a trade. And we shouldn't rule those things out because those things are very much needed. But if that foundation isn't there, and that child's, those first relationships take place in those early childhood years.
And it puts you on a track for success or not success. How you're viewed
Exactly.
is whether you get along well with others, gets along well with others. Yes, I did pretty well at that. But that kind of puts you on a track academically, even in your early years in elementary school, whether you're perceived as being a good student or not.
Right. Well, and do we want to spend those funds now on the development of early childhood programs and the importance of the professionals that are working with these children? Or do we want to put those funds later
Into remediation.
into remediation or, crimes and trials and
Things that just
and prison?
yeah.
Let's really get our priorities in order.
And there are a lot of people talking about that the best place, and I think Jim Dyke is one of them, former Secretary of Education, former chair of the chamber here in Northern Virginia, I think is one of the people who has said the money needs to be invested in the earliest childhood education. And we're talking about expansion of preschool for 4-year-olds, trying to get universal pre-K. And that's a worthy goal. It really is. One of the things that's on my wish list is to get some sort of child care program in every community college campus so that parents with children can actually go back and get a certification or upskill or whatever, because there's someone there to take care of their children.
There's someone there taking care of the children.
To me, if I had a magic wand, it'd be on my priority
And
list.
what better way to help to truly give those that are taking courses in early childhood
I know, right?
their hands-on opportunities to observe or to work in the programs.
Yeah,
So,
and I know you and I were talking previously about the fact that there are some Head Start programs that are part of community colleges. That's a federal program. It would be wonderful to have Head Start programs as part of all 23 community colleges. There are so many ways that we can take what resources we have and deploy it differently.
right. I think the key is, as you said, we've turned a corner, and we need to continue going around that corner and moving things in a forward direction.
Well, everybody needs to take a look at the website, get information. The conference is March 14th through 16th down
Correct.
in Roanoke, Virginia. I am personally taking the train from Alexandria to Roanoke, which is kind of be one of the highlights, is I get to ride the train, and so can everybody
We have
out there.
keynote speakers, we have a banquet, Friday night banquet, we have public policy, luncheon with speakers. There's over 100, but other than the keynote speakers, there's over 100 planned workshops taking place.
That's fantastic. And people are welcome who work with young children. I just want to say thank you again, Mary. This conversation is one that never ends for the two of us.
No, it doesn't. And I hope, thank you again for having me, and I hope it
We
is
are a
one we
team.
continue.
We are a
continue to
team.
have.
And this, ladies and gentlemen, is what you need to know.